I'm Don Mackenzie. I'm one of the founding directors of Linkage. And when we first set up Linkage, we registered the charity in 1976. And neither Dave Sampson nor myself, who were the first directors, intended to work in Linkage, and nor did Rex Richardson, who worked for us even longer as a director of care services. However, when we registered the charity in 1976, the trustees said, well, you're going to have to give up your jobs to run it because nobody else knows what we want to do. So that's what we did. We said we'd give up our jobs and do it for 2 years. And instead of doing it for 2 years, I did it for 35 and Rex did it for longer. Unfortunately, Dave was older than us and not so healthy, and we lost him before 2000, but he was a prime mover in the charity. We started off at Taunton Hall as a first centre for disabled school leavers, and people said the idea of having a further education college for people with learning disabilities is not realistic. That's for people who are bright. But we said, well, you just said they're slow learners. If they're slow learners, they're going to need longer. So we set up a college to allow them to have longer in education and to teach them how to live independently. The driving force behind it all was fear of death, because most parents with a disabled son or daughter, their big anxiety is, what happens if I die? And we wanted to provide some kind of education and training to help these young people become independent and show their mums and dads that they could live independently of them should the worst happen. So all the places at that time were residential, and all the students learned to live with other people and learned how to manage a house in groups. So as the organisation expanded, it started off at Taunton, and within 3 years we had a 3-year waiting list. So we split the staff and the students, moved half and took over Weelsby Hall. So both places had a tradition of having the same staff and the same students, and we infilled at both places, and that was where Weelsby Hall became part of Linkage. The first impressions of Weelsby Hall were, first of all, being amazed that there was an impressive mansion like this in the middle of Grimsby that most Grimsby people didn't know existed. The second thing which was interesting was it had been a family home for the Slight family, the trawler-owning fishing family. But when they stopped using it, it had been allowed to be a school for boys. I suppose people would say boys with behaviour difficulties. And it hadn't been successful, so the building had been empty for a long time. And coming into the building for the first time could be quite eerie, because in every room there were dead starlings. The woods had all grown up. The grounds outside, which had been beautiful grasslands and flower beds, had grown up and died, grown up and died, and there was a massive hay kind of thing. And starlings came in millions. We used to get a murmuration of starlings swirling about in the sky, coming down on the grass. And of course, some of them got inside the building, and every room had dead starlings in it. It was quite creepy, especially for the new students. Students first come in because they came to give a hand in getting the place all ready, because we believed the students should have a big part in managing their own lives, and that meant learning how to decorate their own rooms, cook meals that they were going to eat, look after the gardens and things like that. So when they came first, they came and looked around the building and thought, oh, dead starlings everywhere. Because of the numbers of students that we've had, because I was with Linkage right until I retired, when I was nearly 70, there were, well, it would be 4 figures the number of students who went through our books. There are students who stand out in my mind for different kinds of reasons. Some because they turned out to have abilities that we didn't expect. For instance, we'd have a student show, and you'd find a student who you thought really didn't have much excitement to offer other people, and they turned out to be able to sing amazingly well. We've had students who went on to do things we didn't expect. One who became a taxi driver, and another who works in the British Passport Office and has done for decades. So you could never tell what was going to happen because of the wide range of abilities our students had and the wide range of labels that they'd acquired. And they made very good groups because they could support each other. I think I'm not so much concerned with myself, but I'm very proud of what Linkage has achieved and the number of lives that people who, for the families as well as the students who came to us, we've changed their lives no end. Because lots of families, the brothers and sisters would be expected to take on the care for their sons and their brothers and sisters, and their lives have been affected just as much as their parents were. And we gave these young people a chance to live, and in care services we've got houses all over the county and into the next counties, and where people can live independently of mum and dad and also independently of brothers and sisters. And it's wonderful to see the changes, to see people being able to achieve things we didn't expect. I could give you an example of that. I think I've always tried very hard never to put ceilings on expectations of our students. And we had a young man called Richard who was quite grievously disabled, no speech, some mobility difficulties and learning difficulties. And I went to visit him in one of the houses, because we used to visit everybody in the houses to check on their progress. And the house staff at the time, they were really excited. They said he can go to the shop and buy something on his own. And I said, but there isn't a shop you can get to without crossing a busy road. And he has no speech. And they said, well, it's a challenge. You ask him to buy something. So I gave him a £1 coin and asked him to bring me back a can of Coke. So Richard just grinned at me, took the money and disappeared out the door. Well, I was quite anxious about him crossing the road, and it was a long time, and I was starting to get really worried. And then heard the gate open, in he came up to me, smiled, gave me a can of Coke, gave me my change, and gave me a receipt. And I was so taken aback by how well he had done. Of course, I congratulated the staff on what they'd done, and also Richard. But I kept the can of Coke in the drawer in my desk for years, until one day it blew and filled the drawer with Coke. Well, it's had to change. I mean, I think when we set up, we wanted the students to do all the things that they could do for themselves and to learn how to live away from mum and dad. And to do that, we had to have houses in the community. And the students were nearly all residential. And that was how they learned that they could manage without mum and dad, and it's how mum and dad learned that their son or daughter would manage without them. Of course, the funding has changed out of all recognition since then. There have been local authority cutbacks almost every year since we opened, and now most of the students have day courses, and I don't think they get the chance to do what they used to do. But the need is still there because it's reflected in the expansion of Linkage services and the new building that's going on, and a new care home opening in Lincoln the other day, a new college opened at Bolton Park in Lincoln. So it's still expanding, and that's absolutely fantastic. I love it. This hall is it's strange. I've got all sorts of memories of the hall because we took on the hall when it was owned by Michael Slight, who had lived here. He was actually born here, although he had moved out to live at Kelson near Binbrook. And when we took it on, it was, like I say, almost derelict, and we've seen it change. I mean, we spent a lot of time and effort bringing the building into good repair for use, and finding a terrific range of staff. I'm really proud of the staff we appointed. I think that was one of the real strengths we had. We appointed terrific staff, many of whom stayed for many years, and many of whom are still loyal to the organisation and the building itself, as Bev here would tell you. The building itself, of course, when we took it on, it was very impressive. we had to do some alterations, but we tried not to alter the fabric of the building when we were doing the alterations so that it could be restored to the building as it was. And I heard people say that you know, with the changes going on now, it's quite refreshing that the building is not going to need as much alteration as they thought, because the original building is still there. It's sad to see a building like this deteriorate, but then the maintenance of a building like this is expensive, and it's a valuable building, not just for Linkage, but also for Grimsby and the community, because there's not many like it. I always remember when I very first went round the building, went up to, there's a room right at the tower. It's not so easy to get to, and probably these days, because of fire regulations, you wouldn't necessarily be able to use it. But when you went up there, you could look down at the grounds at the front, which became a football pitch for the students, and you could see the layout of the curlicues of kind of Art Nouveau-shaped flower beds, as they were. And we were told the gardeners here used to bed out 250,000 geraniums every year when the Slight family had it. I also, Michael Slight talked about the use of the building when he was growing up here, and they used to have a ball every year, or sometimes more than a ball, in the hallway here, where we've got this tessellated floor, mosaic floor, and the musicians were up on the balcony rail that goes all the way around the sides, and they had all these ladies in long dresses. And to get here, there was a carriageway which went round the front of the building, beyond where we have at the bottom of the steps. They would go down from our car park, and the ladies used to be dropped there, and then they would walk up a first flight of steps, across what's our car park now, and up a second flight of steps to come into to the ball. It would be an absolute tragedy if the building was allowed to fall into disrepair. It's quality building, quality design. It's a little milestone in time, and when you look at the building, you can immediately take yourself back. Even if you look at the old wallpapers and encrusted around above the picture rail, the fancy ceilings and painted ceiling, things like that. We were told that the artist had to be paid in champagne while he was painting that, lying on his back, drinking champagne. I'm not sure how that went about, what the results of that were. But we've had a lot of memories. We didn't have balls here, but we did have Christmas dinners, and which were cooked by the students with help of staff, served by students with the help of staff, and every room on the ground floor had tables and chairs with students having Christmas dinner there. And it was a very lively festive occasion, terrific. So this place was full of life, and it should be full of life again.